The words of my own son still ring in my ears. The house is in my name now. You have until Friday to leave. He said it with a smile on his face. And I never thought I would hear something like that from my only child. My name is Linda Monroe. I'm 67 years old, and just 2 months ago, my son almost made me homeless. I remember sitting across the kitchen table from him, the same table where I had helped him with his homework when he was a little boy, the same table where we had celebrated his high school graduation, and later where I had comforted him when his first relationship ended. That table had so many memories of love, but now it was where my son tried to betray me. His name is Ryan. He was standing there, his wife beside him. Her name is Valerie. She had one hand on his shoulder, her long nails painted perfectly, and her wedding ring shining in the afternoon sun. The look on her face told me she wasn't here to comfort me. She was here to take what wasn't hers. "What are you talking about?" I asked him, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heart was beating so hard I could barely breathe. Ryan didn't flinch. Instead, he slid a folder across the table, toward me. "It's all legal, Mom. Dad left some loopholes in the will. We took care of everything. We even found you a nice retirement place in Arizona. Small, but enough for someone your age." The words "someone your age" hit me harder than I expected. I opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside, there were property transfer papers with signatures I didn't recognize and dates from 3 months earlier. I had no memory of signing anything. Valerie leaned closer, her voice sweet but fake. "You've been forgetting things, Linda. Just last month, you lost your car keys for hours." I looked at her sharply. "They were in my purse. You borrowed them and never gave them back." For just a second, guilt flashed across her face, but she quickly covered it with fake concern. "See, this is exactly what I mean. You're confused, but I wasn't confused. I had taught math in high school for 40 years, and if teaching taught me one thing, it was how to recognize patterns. And lately, I had noticed strange patterns. My things being moved around the house, my medicine not feeling right sometimes, comments about how big the house was for just me, and sneaky questions about my money. I closed the folder and stared at my son. He didn't even look like my boy anymore. He looked like a stranger wearing my son's face. "And what if I don't leave?" I asked him calmly. For the first time, Ryan's smile faded. "Mom, don't make this hard. The paperwork is already filed. The house is mine now." I stood up slowly, clutching the folder. "And when exactly did I supposedly sign this house over to you?" Valerie jumped in quickly. 2 months ago. Don't you remember? We talked about how hard it was for you to take care of this place." I nodded as if I was considering her words. Then I said, "You're right about one thing. This conversation is too much for me. I think you both should leave." For a moment, I sounded like the mother who used to scold Ryan when he was a boy. He actually stepped back, caught off guard by my firm tone. "We'll give you until Friday to pack your essentials," Valerie said sharply. "The movers will come at noon." They walked out of the house, leaving me standing in my kitchen alone. My kitchen. My house. I let myself cry for exactly 10 minutes. That was all I allowed. Then I wiped my face, picked up the phone, and made a call I had been dreading but preparing for. "Richard, it's Linda Monroe," I said. "Remember that backup plan we talked about last year? I need to activate it today." Richard Hayes was my late husband's attorney for 30 years, and also a family friend. He was the one who had helped me move $800,000 into a secret trust fund 6 months before I retired. At the time, it felt a little paranoid, but now it felt like the smartest decision I had ever made. "They finally made their move," Richard said on the phone, his voice serious. "Yes," I replied. "Apparently, I signed away my house while I was visiting my sister in Michigan 2 months ago. There was silence for a moment, and then Richard said firmly, "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't touch anything they gave you. And Linda, remember what we talked about. Let them think they've won." After I hung up, I walked slowly through my home. The house where I had lived for 35 years. The house where I raised my son. The house where I said goodbye to my husband, Mark. The place I thought I would grow old in peacefully. I stopped to look at the family photos on the wall. One was from Ryan's wedding 5 years ago. He looked so happy that day, so much like his father. When had things changed? When had money become more important to him than family? Another photo caught my eye. It was taken just 3 months ago at my retirement party. Ryan and Valerie stood on either side of me, smiling, holding champagne. "We're so proud of you, Mom," he had said that night. "It's time for you to enjoy life now." I didn't realize he meant enjoying my life without me. When Richard arrived, he had legal pads and folders with him. We sat at the kitchen table, planning what to do next. Underneath my sadness, a new feeling was starting to rise and go. Not the kind that makes you scream, but the kind that makes your back straighten and your mind sharp. "They'll be back on Friday," Richard said, writing notes quickly. I nodded. "With movers?" "Apparently, I already have a place waiting for me in Arizona." Richard gave me a thin smile. "Well, they're going to find something very different waiting for them here." Friday came faster than I expected. I sat on my porch swing, calm and ready. 2 moving trucks pulled up behind Ryan's shiny car. He and Valerie got out, walking toward the house like they had already won. But their confidence faded the moment they saw who was standing next to me. Double quotes, "Hello, Ryan," said Judge Margaret Wilson, my old college roommate and now a respected circuit court judge. "Your mother has quite a story to tell." The blood drained from Ryan's face. I held up the folder of papers. "You should have checked where I was when these were supposedly signed. Forgery and elder fraud are still crimes, aren't they, Judge?" Ryan froze. Valerie tried to cover for him. "Whatever she told you, she's just confused." "We have legal documents, fraudulent documents," Richard interrupted, stepping out from behind me. "And we have proof." For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. And in that moment, I realized something. Deep down, I had known my son might betray me. A mother always knows, even if she doesn't want to admit it. "You really thought I wouldn't see through this?" I asked softly. "I spent 40 years teaching teenagers. Did you really think I wouldn't notice a badly planned scheme?" Ryan stepped forward, his hand reaching out. "Mum, this is a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said firmly, standing tall. "You have until sunset to get those trucks off my property. After that, we'll discuss this with the district attorney." As they stood frozen, I added the words I had been rehearsing in my head all night. "And Ryan, you should never have underestimated the woman who taught you how to count." With that, I turned and walked into my house, leaving them to face what they had done. My battle wasn't over, not even close. But I had just won the first round. 2 days after I kicked Ryan and Valerie out, the phone rang while I was arranging tulips in the kitchen. For a moment, I thought it might be Richard checking in, but instead, I heard a voice I knew too well. "Mom, you need to stop this," Ryan said. His tone was low, controlled, but sharp with anger. "You're making a huge mistake." I tightened my grip on the stem of a yellow tulip until it snapped in half. "By defending my home from theft." "That's my mistake?" I asked, my voice steady. "We were only trying to help you," he said quickly. "This house is too much for you. You're getting older." "What happens when you fall down the stairs?" To a stranger, his words might have sounded like concern, but I knew better. It was the same kind of manipulation he had tried as a teenager, like the time he explained why the family car had a dent. Back then, it was an accident. Now, it was for your safety. Is that what you tell yourself so you can sleep at night? I asked softly. That stealing from your own mother is somehow helping her. We have witnesses, Ryan pressed on, ignoring my question. People who saw you sign the papers. Your friend, the judge, won't be able to help once the evidence comes out. My heart skipped. What witnesses? Dr. Landon, for one. He's prepared to testify about your memory problems. For a second, I thought I misheard. Dr. Thomas Landon had been my doctor for 20 years. But then I remembered that I'd recently found out he had retired 6 months ago. The man I saw at my last checkup wasn't him at all. It was his new partner, Dr. Philip Wells, and Philip just happened to be Valerie's second cousin. I forced my voice to stay calm. Interesting, because those witnesses say, I signed papers in Boston while I was being photographed at my sister's house in Michigan. There was silence on the line. Then Ryan said coldly, You're mixing up dates again, Mum. No, Ryan, I whispered. For the first time, I'm seeing things clearly. And then I hung up. The tulip I had broken lay on the counter, its yellow petals curling inward. I brushed it into my hand and tossed it in the trash, my movements sharp and deliberate. Then I picked up the phone again and called Richard. They're bringing in fake witnesses, I told him, including someone pretending to be my doctor. Richard was quiet for a moment. Then his voice came back, heavy with concern. This goes deeper than we thought. What do we do? I asked. We move to phase 2, he replied firmly. Meet me at First National Bank tomorrow morning at 9. Wear something professional. Bring the insurance documents. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked up and down the hallway, touching the walls of the home I had built with Mark, straightening family pictures that didn't need straightening. In Ryan's old bedroom, still frozen in time like a museum of his childhood, I sat on the edge of his bed and wondered where I lost him. Was it when Mark died and we both were drowning in grief? Was it when Ryan met Valerie and started chasing her idea of wealth and status? Or maybe it was earlier back when we scraped to pay for his private school. Thinking success mattered more than character, I pulled open the bedside drawer and found a faded card. A Mother's Day card Ryan had made in 2nd grade. Inside, written in uneven letters, were the words, I love you more than all the stars. My chest tightened. Had that love always been conditional? Morning came with no answers. Only the determination that had carried me through grief and would now carry me through this fight. I dressed in a navy pantsuit I had once worn to school board meetings, applied lipstick with a steady hand, and drove to the bank. Richard was waiting outside with his briefcase. Ready? He asked. More than ready, I said. Inside, we were greeted by the bank manager, Paul Whitman, one of my former students. His face lit with recognition. Mrs. Monroe, how can I help you today? Richard set his briefcase on Paul's desk. Mrs. Monroe would like to access her safe deposit box and make some adjustments to her accounts. Of course, Paul said politely. I'll need your ID and your key. As I handed them over, I glanced around the lobby and froze. At the far counter, pretending to fill out a form, was Valerie's brother, Dale. His eyes flicked toward us more than once. We're being watched, I murmured. Richard gave a tiny nod. Let them watch. It's part of the plan. In the private room, I unlocked my deposit box and pulled out the papers we needed, the original house deed, Mark's will, untouched insurance policies, things Ryan didn't even know existed. We also pulled out a few empty envelopes and whispered about account numbers just loud enough for Dale to overhear. Back at the desk, Richard leaned in. Mrs. Monroe would also like you to confirm whether anyone has tried to access her accounts without authorization. Paul typed quickly, then frowned. There was an attempt last week to transfer funds from your main account to a new one. Our system flagged it because the request came from Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix. My chest tightened. Was it stopped? Yes, we blocked it. But Paul hesitated. But what? I asked. There was another attempt yesterday using a power of attorney document. Our legal department is reviewing it now. Richard and I exchanged glances. They were moving faster than we had guessed. I need all my accounts frozen immediately, I said, and I'd like to transfer these funds. I slid him a slip of paper with the trust account Richard had helped me set up. Paul looked at the number. His eyebrows lifted. That's nearly everything in your savings, Mrs. Munro. Yes, I said firmly, and it's still mine to move, isn't it? Of course. He began the transfer. Then he paused and looked at me carefully. Mrs. Munro, are you in trouble? I thought of my son, the boy who once promised to love me more than all the stars. Now he was plotting to take everything from me. No, Paul, I said with a sad smile, but someone else is. When we walked out of the bank, Dale was gone. No doubt he had rushed to call Ryan and Valerie, eager to tell them what he thought he had seen. Let them think they're winning, Richard said as we walked to my car. That's what we want, I nodded. Phase 2 complete. But the game wasn't slowing down. That evening, at exactly 6:13, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a courier holding an envelope. Linda Munro, he said briskly. Legal documents. Signature required. I signed and opened it immediately. Inside was a notice from Brennan and Weiss, the law firm where Valerie's father had worked. I was being sued for mental incompetence. The hearing was scheduled for just 5 days later. According to the papers, my concerned family claimed I was suffering from serious cognitive decline. They listed unusual financial behavior, paranoid accusations, and even cited my recent withdrawals as proof I couldn't handle my own affairs. They were asking the court to give Ryan emergency guardianship over me, meaning I would lose control over my money, my house, even my medical choices. My hands didn't shake this time. Instead, a cold calm came over me. I called Richard immediately. They're going for guardianship. Hearing on Tuesday, he inhaled sharply. That's fast. They must have someone on the inside. Valerie's cousin Melanie works in Judge Hargrove's office, I reminded him. She was at their wedding. Richard swore under his breath. How deep does this go? All the way, I said. They've been planning this for months. After a long silence, Richard asked, They know about the money, don't they? Not just the house. A chill spread through me. He was right. Mark and I had lived carefully, saving every penny. Between my teacher's pension, Mark's insurance, and the house, my net worth was close to $2 million, and Ryan didn't want to wait for an inheritance. He wanted it now. Accept the trust, I said quietly. That's the one thing they can't touch. Yes, Richard agreed. But we need hard proof of their scheme. After hanging up, I went into my office and pulled out a leather notebook. Not a diary, but a log I had kept for months. I had written down every strange incident keys going missing, medicines that made me foggy, appointments moved without my knowledge, even the pills I found once that weren't mine, but had been swapped into my bottle. Page after page told a story, not of a confused old woman, but of a deliberate, cruel pattern. What people today call gaslighting. In my day, we just called it lying. I closed the notebook. If they wanted a fight, I was ready. And so, the battle for my life, the real battle, had officially begun. The morning after I found out about the guardianship hearing, I drove to Lakeside Senior Center. I hadn't told Richard where I was going, because some battles a person has to fight in their own way. Margaret Chen, the director and a dear friend for more than 15 years, was waiting for me in her office. On her desk was a portable scanner and a stack of forms. Are you sure about this, Linda? She asked, concern in her voice. Once you start, there's no turning back. They're trying to declare me incompetent, Maggie, I said firmly. If I don't fight with everything I've got, They'll put me in some cut-rate facility while Ryan and Valerie live in my house and spend my money. I won't let that happen. She gave me a long look, then nodded. All right. The residents are ready. 26 of them, just like you asked. All retired teachers, doctors, engineers sharp as tacks, for the next 3 hours. I gave every one of them the same tests that the court would use against me. Memory tests, problem-solving exercises, even the clock-drawing test. Each person completed it, then signed a sworn statement confirming the results were accurate. By the end, I had a pile of evidence showing exactly what I already knew high-functioning seniors, including me, could pass these tests without issue. Maggie scanned everything, creating digital copies that couldn't just disappear from the court files. What else do you need? She asked when we finished. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I need you to record this. I handed her my phone and showed her the text I had received that morning from Ryan. Mom, stop this nonsense. If you cooperate, we'll let you take your personal belongings. If you fight us, you'll lose everything. Maggie's face hardened. Your own son sent this. Linda, this is abuse. Clear as day. Exactly, I said. Now, let's get it documented. As I drove home, my phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. For a moment, I almost didn't answer. But something told me I should. Mrs. Monroe. A young man's voice said, Yes, it's Tyler Dawson, from the bank. I remembered him, one of the tellers. Always polite. I'm not supposed to be calling you, he said in a low voice. But you were always kind to me, and what's happening isn't right. Someone came in with a court order for your financial records. They're digging through everything, checking accounts, savings, safe deposit logs. My stomach dropped. Did they find anything? Not what they were looking for, Tyler said. They seemed frustrated. Mrs. Monroe, you need to be careful. Your son, he scared me. After thanking him, I hung up and sat in my car with my hands gripping the steering wheel. They knew about the $800,000 transfer. They just didn't know where it was. And that made them dangerous. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw someone sitting on my porch steps. Shoulders hunched, hoodie pulled low. For a second, I thought it might be one of Ryan's men. But then he looked up, and I saw eyes that looked just like Mark's. It was Ethan. My grandson, Gran, he said, his voice cracking a little. He was only 17, stuck between boy and man, taller than me now. Are you alone? I asked, scanning the street for Ryan's car. He nodded. They think I'm at debate practice. I took an Uber here. We walked inside. I made him hot chocolate, the way I had since he was small, real chocolate, melted into milk, with a pinch of cinnamon and a homemade marshmallow from the freezer. Some traditions stay, no matter how old they get. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Ryan had tried to take my house from me days earlier. What's going on, Gran? Ethan asked, looking so troubled. Dad and Mom keep saying you're confused, that you need help. That's why they're trying to take over. Do I seem confused to you? I asked. He looked at me carefully, then shook his head. No, you seem angry. Yes, I admitted. I am angry. Ethan, your parents are trying to take my house and my savings. They forged documents saying I gave the house to them. Now they're trying to get guardianship, saying I can't make decisions for myself. Ethan's eyes widened. That's what they meant by supervision. I nodded. If they succeed, I'll lose control over everything. My home, my money, even my medical care. Why would they do that? He asked, his voice rising. Then the truth hit him. It's the money, isn't it? I reached across the table and took his hand. Yes, the house and my savings together are worth about $2 million. He let out a breath and set his mug down hard, spilling chocolate on the table. No, Dad wouldn't. He complains about money sometimes. But he wouldn't, Ethan, I said gently, sliding my phone to him. Read this. It was Ryan's threatening text. As Ethan read it, the color drained from his face. Oh God, he whispered. I'm fighting back, I told him. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. There will be a court hearing. Ugly things will be said. What can I do? He asked, looking so much like the little boy who once promised he'd slay dragons for me. Nothing, I said firmly. This isn't your fight. You're only 17. Your job is to focus on school, on your future. But you're my grandmother, he said, his voice breaking. And they're lying about you. You're caught in the middle, I told him gently. If you take my side openly, you'll have to deal with the fallout at home. I won't put that on you. Ethan's jaw set stubbornly, the same look Ryan had worn at his age whenever he wanted his way. I don't care. What they're doing is wrong. There is one thing you can do, I said slowly, thinking out loud. You could listen, quietly, find out what they're planning, what they say when they think no one's listening. You wouldn't have to testify, just keep me informed. He was quiet for a long moment, weighing it. Then he nodded. I'll help. But Gran, there's something you should know about Dad's business. My stomach tightened. What about it? I overheard him on the phone last week. The company, it's in trouble. Big trouble. He was talking about investors, bridge capital, paying people back. It sounded bad, like fraud, I said softly. Ethan winced, but nodded. He's been working late every night. Mum's been drinking more. They fight a lot, I think. They're desperate. The pieces clicked together. Ryan wasn't just greedy. He was drowning, and he was trying to use me as his life raft. There's more, Ethan said, his voice hesitant. Yesterday, I saw Mum scanning old photo albums of you from college. When I asked why, she closed the laptop. Gran, I think they're trying to make you look bad. Like you've always had problems. Understanding hit me like ice water. They were building a false history. Looking for photos where I looked confused or tired or maybe holding a drink. To use as evidence, I squeezed Ethan's hand. Don't be sorry. Knowledge is power. Now I know what they're up to. He nodded, but when the old grandfather clock chimed 4, he jumped. I should go before they notice. At the door, he suddenly hugged me tightly. I believe you, Gran, and I have access to Mom's cloud storage. She backs everything up. Photos, texts, emails. I know her password. I pulled back to look at him. Ethan, be careful. It's the right thing to do, he said firmly. You taught me that. After he left, I called Richard immediately. I need a computer expert. Someone discreet. Tonight, what are you planning, Linda? He asked. I looked out the window at Ethan walking away, shoulders squared with determination. I'm planning to save my son from himself, even if he hates me for it. By 8 that night, my dining room was transformed into a command center. Richard had brought a woman named Sophia Diaz, a digital forensic specialist who used to work for the FBI. She was small, efficient, with short grey hair and glasses that made her look like she could see. Straight through lies, double quotes, Mrs. Monroe, she said briskly. Richard explained. Elder fraud cases are common. Don't worry, we'll stick to the law. Your grandson is giving us access, so this is all legal. Good, I said. Though my nerves were buzzing, at 8:30, Ethan texted, all clear. They're at dinner until 10. Using Mom's laptop now. Sophia's fingers flew across her keyboard. He's sending the info. Smart kid using encrypted messaging. We're in. She turned the screen toward us. On it was an email from Ryan to someone named Carson Weiss-Valerie's brother-in-law, a real estate lawyer. It read, need to expedite property transfer. Mother resisting. V suggests incompetency ruling ASAP. Have Melanie fast-track with judge. Investors pressuring. Equity plus retirement funds cover gap. The date was weeks before Ryan confronted me in the kitchen. Sophia clicked through folders labeled Monroe Estate. Inside were inventories of my belongings, jewelry, appraisals, financial account guesses, and another file called Cognitive Strategy. Notes on every time I had misplaced something, every mistake, every moment they could twist into evidence. They've been building a case for months, Sophia said grimly. Then she opened another folder. This is worse. Inside were records from Ryan's firm, Meridian Capital. Numbers that didn't add up. Money flowing in from investors and out to other investors. With a lot missing in between. Richard leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. It's a Ponzi scheme, he said flatly. My heart stopped. No, Ryan wouldn't, but the truth was right in front of me. The boy who once promised to love me more than the stars had become a man willing to lie, cheat, and steal to keep his false empire alive. Sophia clicked into another file. An email exchange between Ryan and Valerie about a deposit on a house in Costa Rica. A non-extradition country. They were planning to flee, and they were planning to take Ethan with them. My whole body went cold. Double quotes, Mrs. Monroe, Sophia said carefully. This isn't just elder fraud. This is securities fraud. Conspiracy. Maybe even kidnapping if they take your grandson out of the country. Richard's face was grim. If we go to the FBI now, they'll run. We need to secure your safety and assets first. Then we deal with the rest. I nodded slowly, though my heart was breaking. My son wasn't just trying to steal from me. He was willing to destroy everything, including his own child's future, just to escape his own lies. And I knew then this battle wasn't just about saving myself. It was about saving Ethan, and maybe, if it wasn't too late, saving Ryan from the worst parts of himself. The next few days moved like a storm building on the horizon, dark, restless, full of energy that had to break somewhere. The guardianship hearing was coming up fast, but instead of feeling afraid, I felt sharper than I had in years. Because now, I had something Ryan and Valerie didn't know I had, the truth. Sophia and Richard came over almost every evening. My dining room looked less like a grandmother's home and more like a war room. Legal pads, laptops, manila folders, and printouts covered the table. Between us, we were building a case. Not just against the guardianship petition, but against the fraud itself. But evidence is one thing. Timing is another. We can't go to the authorities yet, Richard reminded me. If they suspect, they'll bolt. Costa Rica isn't just a vacation spot. It's a safe house. Then we need to corner them, I said. Force them to reveal themselves before they're ready. Sophia pushed her glasses up and smiled faintly. A sting operation. That night, I barely slept. I kept walking around the house, pausing at the photos of Mark, the memories of raising Ryan, the echoes of laughter that once filled these walls. How did we end up here? A mother setting a trap for her own child. But then I'd picture Ethan's face, pale with worry, and I knew I couldn't afford softness. Not now. The next morning, Richard called with news. I've spoken to Judge Wilson again. She's agreed to attend the guardianship hearing not as the presiding judge, but as an observer. She knows something is off and wants to see for herself. Relief washed over me. Margaret Wilson had been my college roommate. She knew me better than almost anyone alive. If Ryan and Valerie thought they could convince the court I was incompetent, they hadn't counted on Margaret watching every move. By Monday, Ethan came back with more. He'd overheard Ryan talking to Valerie late at night. Dad said, "We'll be out of here by next month." She won't know what hit her, Ethan told me, his eyes wide. And Mum said, "Don't forget, we promised Carson a cut." Carson Weiss, Valerie's brother-in-law. The lawyer? The pieces tightened together like gears in a machine. "They're desperate," I said, "and desperation makes people sloppy." So we made our plan. On Tuesday, the courthouse lobby smelled faintly of old wood and lemon polish. I walked in wearing my navy pantsuit, the same one I had worn to the bank. My hair was brushed back neatly, my lipstick perfectly applied. If they wanted to paint me as a confused, fragile old woman, I would make sure I looked anything but. Richard carried our files. Sophia carried a slim laptop bag. Ethan wasn't allowed to be officially involved, but he was there, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom, pretending to read a book. Ryan and Valerie swept in like royalty arriving at a gala. Ryan wore a tailored grey suit, Valerie a red dress that clung to her like a warning sign. They were confident, smiling, like they had already won. They didn't even look at me. The hearing began. Judge Hargrove, a man in his late 50s with thinning hair, sat at the bench. His expression was neutral, but I noticed Maloney, Valerie's cousin, sitting nearby as his clerk. Valerie's lawyer, Carson, stood up first. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward matter. Our clients, Ryan and Valerie Monroe, are simply concerned about the well-being of Ryan's mother, Linda Monroe. She has displayed numerous signs of cognitive decline and financial recklessness. We are asking for emergency guardianship to protect her interests." I sat still, my hands folded calmly in my lap, even as anger burned inside me. Carson continued, producing papers. "We have documented instances of misplaced items, confusion about dates, and unusual financial transfers. For example, Mrs. Monroe recently withdrew nearly all funds from her savings account. This reckless behavior puts her future at risk." "Objection," Richard said smoothly, rising to his feet. "Those transfers were into a legally established trust, with full documentation. And as for confusion, I'd like to remind the court that my client is a retired teacher with over 40 years of experience, in perfect health, with no diagnosed medical conditions." The back and forth began. Carson called their so-called witness doctor, Philip Wells, Valerie's cousin. He wore a crisp white coat, as if to add weight to his words. "I've observed signs of memory impairment," Dr. Wells testified. "Mrs. Monroe has difficulty recalling conversations, often repeats herself, and displays paranoia about theft." Richard leaned forward. "Dr. Wells, how many times have you personally examined my client?" "Twice," he said. "And on those occasions, did you conduct any standardized cognitive tests?" "No," he admitted. "So your opinion is based on conversation?" "Yes." Richard let the silence hang, then said, "No further questions." When it was my turn, Richard whispered, "Stay calm. Be yourself." I walked to the witness stand and raised my hand to be sworn in. Then I sat down and looked directly at Judge Hargrove. "My son claims I am incompetent," I began. "Let me tell you who I am. I taught mathematics at Jefferson High School for 40 years. I paid my mortgage on time every month. I managed my household, my family, and my students with care. I may be 67, but I am not confused. I am not weak, and I am certainly not incapable of making my own decisions." Carson smirked. "Mrs. Monroe, isn't it true that you recently misplaced your car keys for hours?" "Yes," I said calmly, "because my daughter-in-law borrowed them without returning them. I found them in her purse." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Carson tried again. "And isn't it true that you accused your family of trying to drug you?" "Yes," I said, "because I found pills in my bottle that were not prescribed to me. Would you like to see the lab results confirming they weren't mine?" Richard handed over the folder with the report. Carson's smirk faltered. Then Richard stood. "Your Honor, if I may present new evidence." Sophia opened her laptop, connecting it to the courtroom's projector. On the screen appeared the emails we had uncovered. Ryan's words glowed larger than life. "Need to expedite property transfer." Mother resisting. Have Melanie fast-track with judge. Investors pressuring. Equity plus retirement funds cover gap. Gasps filled the room. Judge Hargrove's face darkened, and Melanie looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Ryan shot to his feet. This is private correspondence. Illegally obtained. Actually, Sophia said, her voice calm and precise. These were obtained legally through an authorized user. Your son's wife stored them on a shared cloud account, accessible by her own household members. Your Honor, this isn't illegal, it's discovery. Valerie's face turned pale. Then Richard dropped the final piece. In addition, Your Honor, we have evidence that Ryan Monroe's company, Meridian Capital, is engaged in fraudulent investment practices. We are prepared to share this with federal investigators. We also have proof of plans to flee the country with Mrs. Monroe's grandson. The courtroom erupted. Valerie covered her face with her hands. Ryan's composure cracked, his voice rising. Mum, how could you do this to me? To your own son? I stood slowly, my voice steady, carrying years of both love and sorrow. No, Ryan, how could you do this to me? To your own mother? To your son? The judge pounded his gavel for order. Enough. This matter is far beyond a simple guardianship hearing. Based on the evidence presented, the petition is denied. Furthermore, I am ordering an immediate investigation into fraudulent activity and potential witness tampering. I sat back down, my heart pounding but my face calm. Ryan slumped into his chair, defeated. Valerie whispered furiously to him, but for once he had no words. The hearing ended in chaos. Reporters outside the courthouse shouted questions as we left. I kept my head high, Richard and Sophia flanking me like guards. But even as the cameras flashed, I knew this wasn't the end. Ryan was cornered, and desperate people don't go quietly. That night, as I sat on my porch watching the sun set over the yard I loved, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. It read, "You may have won today, but this isn't over. You don't know what I'm capable of." For the first time, a chill ran through me, because I knew, deep down, Ryan wasn't just desperate anymore. He was dangerous. The days after the hearing felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. On the surface, everything seemed calm, but deep down, I could feel the storm building again. Ryan and Valerie had been humiliated in court. Their guardianship petition was denied. Their emails had been exposed. Their reputation, at least in our small community, was crumbling. But humiliation doesn't always stop people. Sometimes it makes them reckless. Richard called me the morning after the hearing. "I've already had 2 different journalists call about the case," he said. "Word is spreading. That could be good, puts pressure on Ryan, but it also means he may lash out." I sighed, looking out the window at my garden. "He already has," I said, and told him about the threatening text I had received. There was silence on the other end. Then Richard said, "We need to talk about protection. Do you want me to arrange private security?" I thought about it. For most of my life, I had never locked the back door to this house. My neighbors came and went, bringing casseroles or borrowing tools. But now, with my own son threatening me, I realized the world had changed. "Yes," I said finally. "Do it." That afternoon, a man named Carlos showed up. Former police, built like a linebacker, with kind eyes that softened when he looked at me. "Mrs. Monroe," he said, shaking my hand, "I'll be here evenings and nights. Cameras are already installed outside. No one gets near you without me knowing." For the first time in weeks, I felt a little safer, but safety is never permanent. 2 nights later, Ethan showed up again. This time, he looked scared. Really scared. "Gran," he whispered, the moment I opened the door, "Dad's losing it. He and Mum have been fighting non-stop since the hearing. He's drinking a lot, yelling at people on the phone." Last night, he punched a hole in the wall. My stomach tightened. What about you? Did he hurt you? Ethan shook his head quickly. No, but I'm worried. He keeps saying things like, if she wants war, she'll get war. Mum's scared too, but she's still sticking by him. I pulled him inside. We sat at the kitchen table, and I made him another cup of hot chocolate, because sometimes comfort is the only thing you can offer. Ethan, I said carefully, you need to be careful. If your father is drinking and angry, don't challenge him. Don't argue. Keep your head down. But Gran, he said, his voice breaking, what if he does something to you? That's why I have protection, I told him. And that's why we're gathering evidence. I promise you, I won't let him win. Ethan nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The next morning, Sophia came by with her laptop. She looked grim. They're cleaning house, she told us. Files are disappearing from Ryan's servers. Emails deleted. Bank accounts being drained. Which means, I asked. Which means, she said slowly, they know they're caught. They're moving fast to cover their tracks. If we don't act soon, the evidence will vanish. Richard leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. The FBI is already interested. I've spoken with a contact, but they need more. Enough to tie Ryan directly to investor fraud, not just family manipulation. Sophia pulled up a document on her screen. This is a contract Ryan signed with one of his investors last year. The signature is real. But look, these numbers don't match the statements he gave the SEC. It's fraud, plain and simple. And how much money are we talking about? I asked quietly. Sophia glanced at Richard, then said, tens of millions. The room went silent. Tens of millions, I repeated, my voice hollow. Richard nodded grimly. Your son isn't just in trouble. He's in deep. The kind of trouble people don't crawl out of. I sat very still, my teacup cooling in my hands. My son, the little boy who once clutched my hand on his first day of kindergarten, was now a criminal facing federal charges. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. That night, I walked through the house again. Each photo, each memory, felt heavier. When I reached Mark's portrait, I stopped and whispered, I tried, Mark. I tried to raise him right. But I don't know how to save him from this. The next day, things escalated. I was in the garden, trimming roses, when Carlos came running from the driveway. Inside, Mrs. Monroe. Now, I dropped my shears and hurried in. Through the front window, I saw Ryan's car parked on the street. He was behind the wheel, just sitting there, staring at the house. Should I call the police? Carlos asked. No, I said quickly. Not yet. Let's see what he does. For nearly 20 minutes, Ryan sat there, unmoving. Then he drove off without a word. But later that night, I found something chilling. On the porch, tucked under the doormat, was a photo of me taken that very afternoon. Me, bending over the roses, unaware of the camera. On the back, in Ryan's handwriting, were the words, TikTok. My hands trembled as I showed it to Carlos. His face hardened. This is escalation. He's trying to intimidate you, Richard agreed. We need to get the FBI involved immediately. This isn't just fraud anymore, it's harassment. It's stalking, but I wasn't ready to back down. No, I said firmly. If we go to them now, Ryan will know we've involved the feds. He'll disappear. We need him to think I'm still just his old mother, someone he can manipulate. Richard looked at me for a long time. Linda, you're playing with fire. Maybe, I said, but it's my fire to play with. Over the next few days, Ethan fed us more information. Ryan was trying to liquidate assets, calling investors, promising returns he couldn't possibly deliver. Valerie was packing bags in secret, hiding passports in her dresser drawer. They're getting ready to run. Ethan whispered during one of his visits. Sophia tapped her keyboard. If we let them try and catch them in the act, it'll be stronger evidence. It was risky. Very risky. But I agreed, and then came the breaking point. It was a Thursday evening when I got the call. Ethan's voice was panicked. "Gran, Dad's planning something tonight," he said. "We'll finish this once and for all." I don't know what he means, but he sounded scary. I grabbed my purse. "Where are you?" "In my room." "He doesn't know I'm calling. Please, be careful." After hanging up, I turned to Carlos. "Tonight's the night." He nodded grimly. "Then let's be ready." We set up cameras throughout the house. Sophia connected everything to her laptop. Richard called a federal contact, alerting him to stand by, and then we waited. At exactly 11:47 p.m., headlights swept across my driveway. Ryan's car. Valerie was with him. They walked up to the door, carrying something between them. A duffel bag. My heart pounded as Carlos whispered into his radio, signaling the team of plainclothes agents who had stationed nearby at Richard's request. The doorbell rang. I opened it. Ryan stood there, his face pale but determined. "Mom, let us in." I stepped aside. "Come in, Ryan, Valerie." They entered, placing the duffel bag on the kitchen table. Ryan unzipped it, revealing stacks of cash. "This is what it comes down to," he said, his voice shaking. "Help us, Mom. Give us the rest of the money, and we'll disappear. You'll never see us again. No trial, no prison, just freedom." I looked at the money, then at my son, my only son, and I felt my heart break all over again. "Ryan," I said softly, "I already gave you everything that mattered. My time, my love, my life, and it wasn't enough for you." Valerie snapped. "Stop being dramatic. Just give us the money." And that's when Richard stepped out of the hallway, followed by 2 federal agents. "Game over," Richard said quietly. Ryan's eyes widened as the agents moved in, badges flashing. Valerie screamed, and I stood there, watching as my son's world finally collapsed. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut around. Ryan's wrists echoed through my kitchen, louder than any thunder I had ever heard. 2 federal agents stood on either side of him, reading his rights. Valerie was shouting, her voice sharp and panicked. But no one was listening. "Ryan Monroe, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, attempted elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit fraud," one of the agents recited. Ryan's face was pale, his jaw clenched. He didn't look at me. Not once. Valerie, on the other hand, turned on me like a wild animal. "This is your fault," she screamed, her hair falling in her face. "You set him up. You destroyed your own son." I stood there quietly, my hands folded in front of me. "No, Valerie. He destroyed himself. I just stopped him from taking me down with him." The agents escorted them out. As Ryan passed me, his eyes finally met mine. For just a second, I thought I saw the little boy who used to be the one who made me Mother's Day cards, who hugged me tight when he was scared of thunderstorms. But the moment passed. What I saw instead was a man hardened by lies, driven by greed, and blinded by desperation. The front door closed behind them. Silence filled the house again. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table. My body felt heavy, like all the strength had drained from me at once. Richard sat across from me, his face lined with exhaustion but also relief. "It's over," he said softly. But I shook my head. "No, Richard. It's not over. Not yet." Because even as the agents drove away, I knew the aftermath was just beginning. The next morning, the news broke. Local businessman Ryan Monroe arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The headlines read. Valerie's picture was there too. Her red dress from the court hearing splashed across every channel. Reporters camped outside my house, their vans clogging the street. Cameras pointed at my front porch. I stayed inside, curtains drawn. The phone rang non-stop. Neighbors, old colleagues, even strangers. Some called to offer support. Others called just to gossip. But the hardest call came that afternoon. Gran. Ethan's voice was small, broken. I closed my eyes. "Oh, sweetheart. They arrested Dad," he said, his words trembling. "At school. Everyone's talking about it. They showed it on the news." I didn't know what to say. My heart cracked. No teenager should have to carry that kind of shame. "Listen to me, Ethan," I said firmly. "This is not your fault. Do you hear me? Not one bit of it. But he's my dad," he whispered. "And Mum. She's freaking out. She keeps crying, saying it's all your fault. She told me we might lose everything. What am I supposed to do?" I took a deep breath. "You're supposed to remember who you are. You're smart, you're kind, and you're stronger than you think. This storm isn't yours to carry. It's mine. Let me carry it." For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then quietly, he said, "I still believe you, Gran. I believe you did the right thing." Tears blurred my eyes. That's all I need to hear. After we hung up, I sat in silence. The guilt pressed heavy on me. Had I saved Ethan, or had I scarred him for life by exposing his father? Later that evening, Richard came by with updates. "Ryan's being held without bail," he explained. "The fraud charges are serious dents of millions, multiple victims. Valerie's not officially charged yet, but she's under investigation. It's possible she'll turn on Ryan to save herself." "Wouldn't surprise me," I muttered. "She's already trying to cut a deal," Richard added. "The prosecutors think she testified that Ryan masterminded the whole scheme." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. So after years of standing by him, now she throws him under the bus. Richard gave me a long look. That's how people like her work. Loyalty lasts only as long as the money does. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house felt louder, every shadow heavier. I kept thinking about Ryan alone in a cell, furious at me. Would he ever understand why I did what I did? Or would he hate me until the day I died? 2 days later, Ethan showed up at my door again. This time, he wasn't just scared. He looked broken. "Gran," he said, his voice rough. "Mum's gone." My breath caught. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "She packed a bag last night and left. I woke up this morning and she was just gone. No note, nothing. Just gone." I pulled him inside and hugged him tight. His shoulders shook against me. "She left me, Gran," he whispered. "She actually left me." I stroked his hair, my heart breaking for him. "You're not alone, Ethan. You'll never be alone. You'll stay here with me. This is your home now." He pulled back, his eyes red. "But what about Dad?" I swallowed hard. "Your dad made his choices. Now he has to face them." Over the next week, Ethan moved into my house. We set up his room in what had once been Ryan's old bedroom. At first, it felt strange, like history repeating itself. But slowly, the space filled with Ethan's things. His debate trophies on the shelf, his sneakers by the bed, his laptop glowing late into the night. And with him there, the house felt alive again. But the outside world didn't quiet down. Reporters still lingered. Anonymous letters arrived in the mail, some supportive, some cruel. One said, "A real mother wouldn't put her son in prison." I burned that one in the fireplace one evening. Ethan and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. "Gran," he said suddenly, "do you ever regret it? Turning Dad in?" The question cut me. I thought about it for a long time before answering. "I regret that it came to this," I said slowly. "I regret that your dad made choices that forced my hand. But do I regret protecting myself? Protecting you? No, I don't. Because love isn't letting someone destroy you. Sometimes love is saying no, even when it hurts. He was quiet for a long time. Then he leaned against me, resting his head on my shoulder. I think I get it, he whispered. As the days turned into weeks, court dates loomed. Ryan's trial was set for the fall. The prosecutors wanted me to testify. The thought of sitting in a courtroom, facing my son while describing his betrayal, made my stomach twist. But I knew I would do it, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the truth. One afternoon, Sophia came by with an envelope. She looked almost triumphant. Remember the trust fund, Linda? The one with $800,000? Yes, I said cautiously. It's grown. With the market gains interest and careful investment, it's now worth over $1 million. My breath caught. $1 million? She nodded. And it's safe, untouchable. This house is still yours. Your future is secure. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Relief. That night, I slept deeply. No tossing, no nightmares. Just sleep. But in the morning, as I sat with my coffee, I realized something. Money was never the point. I could have lived on a fraction of what I had. What mattered was the choice. The freedom. The fact that my life was mine to live, not someone else's to steal. And for that, I was grateful. Still, I knew the hardest part was yet to come. The trial. The moment when I would stand in court, look my son in the eyes, and tell the truth. And I wondered, when that day came, if Ryan would finally understand that, or if he would go to his grave blaming me. The courthouse smelled of old wood and nervous energy the day Ryan's trial began. I had been here before for jury duty, years ago, but walking in as a witness was something else entirely. Reporters crowded outside, their voices a chaotic mix of questions. Mrs. Monroe, how does it feel to testify against your own son? Do you believe he's guilty? Is it true his wife abandoned him? I kept my head down and walked past them, Ethan's hand tightly gripping mine. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he insisted. I need to see this, Gran, he said, and I couldn't deny him. After all, this trial wasn't just about MIT, it was about his future to dot inside the courtroom. Ryan sat at the defense table, dressed in a dark suit. His hair was neatly combed, but he looked thinner, more worn. Valerie wasn't there. She had already struck her deal with the prosecution, trading her silence for her freedom. Ryan glanced at me as I entered, but his eyes were cold. There was no recognition, no warmth, just anger. The prosecution began with the facts. Investor statements, bank records, the missing millions. Piece by piece, they built the picture of Meridian Capital as a house of cards. One Ryan had built on lies. Then came the testimony. Angry investors, former employees, even Valerie herself, who testified that Ryan had masterminded everything and pressured her to go along. When it was my turn, my heart pounded. I walked to the witness stand, raised my hand, and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Hart, began gently. Mrs. Monroe, can you tell the court your relationship to the defendant? I swallowed. He's my son. And can you describe when you first realized something was wrong? I told them. About the day Ryan and Valerie confronted me in my kitchen. About the forged documents. About the threats. About the guardianship petition. My voice stayed steady, though inside, every word felt like ripping open an old wound. The jury listened closely. Some looked shocked. Some sympathetic. Then came the hardest part. Mrs. Monroe, Miss Hart, asked carefully, how did it feel to discover that your own son was trying to take everything from you? I took a deep breath, forcing myself not to cry. It felt like losing him twice. Once when his father died, and again when I realized the boy I raised was gone. What stood before me wasn't my son anymore, which was a man who valued money more than family. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge seemed to pause. Then it was the defense's turn. Ryan's lawyer, a slick man with a silver tie, stood up, double quotes Mrs. Monroe. He said smoothly, "Isn't it true that you've had memory lapses? Forgetting dates, misplacing items?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Because my daughter-in-law was moving my things, changing my medicine, and trying to make me doubt myself. That's called gaslighting." He frowned. "And isn't it true that you moved a large sum of money into a secret account without telling your son?" "Yes," I replied, "because I knew one day he might try to take what wasn't his. And I was right." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't getting the answers he wanted. Finally, he asked Mrs. Monroe, "Do you love your son?" The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I looked at Ryan. Really looked at him. "Yes," I said softly, "I love him. I will always love him. But love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. Sometimes, love means telling the truth, even when it hurts." The lawyer had no response. He sat down. When my testimony ended, I walked back to my seat. Ethan reached out, squeezing my hand. His eyes were wet, but he didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The trial dragged on for weeks. More evidence, more witnesses. Each day, Ryan looked smaller, angrier. Sometimes, he glared at me across the courtroom. Other times, he kept his head down, scribbling notes. Finally, after 3 long weeks, the jury retired to deliberate. Ethan and I waited in the hallway with Richard and Sophia. Hours passed. My nerves twisted into knots. Then the bailiff appeared. Verdicts in, we filed back into the courtroom. The jury filed in too, their faces solemn. The foreman stood. On the charge of securities fraud, we find the defendant, Ryan Monroe, guilty. On the charge of wire fraud, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On the charge of attempted elder abuse, guilty. Each word landed like a hammer. Ryan's head dropped. Valerie wasn't there to see it. Ethan squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. The judge spoke. "Ryan Monroe, you are hereby sentenced to 20 years in federal prison." Gasps rippled through the room. My chest tightened. 20 years. My son would be almost 60 by the time he got out. Ryan finally looked at me. His face was twisted with fury. "You did this," he hissed. "You ruined me." I held his gaze, my voice steady. "No, Ryan, you ruined yourself." The bailiffs led him away. The sound of the cell door clanging in my mind was final. Afterward, Ethan and I walked out of the courthouse into the sunlight. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashing, but I didn't stop. I kept walking, my grandson at my side at home. We sat on the porch swing, both of us exhausted. "Gran," Ethan said quietly, "do you think he'll ever forgive you?" I stared out at the sunset. Maybe, maybe not. But forgiveness isn't what I need from him. What I need is for him to learn, to change, to face what he's done. Ethan was silent for a moment, then said, "I don't hate him. I hate what he did, but I don't hate him." I looked at him, pride swelling in my chest. "That's because you're stronger than he ever was. Don't ever lose that." That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about Mark, about the life we built, about the dreams we had for Ryan. And I wondered if Mark was still alive. Would things have been different? Or was this always the path Ryan was heading down? I didn't know. I only knew that I had done what I had to do, not just to save myself, but to save Ethan. Because sometimes survival isn't just about living another day. Sometimes It's about making sure the next generation has a chance to live better. And that's what I had done. The trial was over. Ryan was gone, but the story wasn't finished. Not yet. Life after the trial felt strange. The kind of strange that comes when a storm finally passes. But the air is still heavy, and the ground is littered with broken branches. For weeks, I woke up expecting another battle, another phone call, another forged document, another threat shoved under my door. But none came. Ryan was in prison. Valerie was gone. The war was over, and yet the silence was almost harder than the noise. The first morning, without reporters outside my house, I stood on the porch with my coffee, listening to the quiet. For the first time in months, the street looked normal. Kids rode bikes. Neighbors waved. Birds chirped in the trees. It should have been comforting. Instead, I felt hollow. It hit me then. The fight had given me purpose. Every day, I had woken up with something to defend, someone to protect, a plan to carry out. Now, there was just me and Ethan. He was my reason now. Living with me had changed him. At first, he was withdrawn, quiet, carrying too much on his young shoulders. But slowly, little by little, he came back to life. He joined the debate team again, even started smiling more. At dinner, he would tell me stories about school, about his friends, about the girl he liked but wouldn't admit to. One night, as we were washing dishes, he looked at me and said, "Gran, I don't know what I'd have done if you weren't here." I dried a plate and smiled softly. I could say the same about you, Ethan, because in truth, he had saved me too. His presence kept me from collapsing under the weight of what I'd lost. But healing isn't fast. Sometimes, I'd walk past Ryan's old room and feel a sharp ache in my chest. Sometimes I'd see a man at the grocery store with his same shoulders, or hear a laugh that sounded just like his, and the pain would return. I'd wonder, was there a moment I could have stopped this? A word I could have said, a choice I could have made that would have kept him from falling so far? I'll never know. But slowly, I learned to let the guilt go. One evening, Richard came by with a bottle of wine. We sat on the porch, watching the sun sink into the horizon. "You did the right thing, Linda," he told me. "I've seen families destroyed by greed before. But you stood your ground. You protected yourself." And Ethan, I sipped my glass, the wine warm and smooth. I didn't want to destroy him, Rich. I just wanted to stop him. "I know," he said quietly. "But sometimes stopping someone means destroying the path they've chosen. That's not on you. That's on him." I thought about that long after he left. A few weeks later, I received a letter. The return address was the federal prison in Colorado. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was from Ryan, Mom. It began, "I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I don't have anyone else. Maybe because I'm angry. Maybe because I still can't believe you chose strangers over me." I closed my eyes, the words stabbing deep. "You always said family was everything. Well, you broke this family. You betrayed me. And I don't know if I'll ever forgive you." There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what he had done. Just blame. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. Later, maybe I'd decide whether to respond, but not that day. That day, I chose peace, because I had learned something through all of this. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about freeing yourself from carrying their sins on your back, and I wasn't ready yet. Time passed. Seasons changed. Ethan graduated high school with honors. I sat in the front row, clapping harder than anyone, tears streaming down my face as he walked across the stage. After the ceremony, he hugged me tight. "Gran," he whispered, "you were right. The truth matters, always." I smiled through my tears. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. Your future is bright." Don't let anyone dim it. He left for college that fall. The house was quiet again, but not lonely. I filled my days with gardening, volunteering at the senior center, even teaching a math class once a week to kids who struggled with numbers, and sometimes, in the stillness of evening, I'd sit on the porch swing with a cup of tea, thinking about the road behind me. I had lost a son, but I had gained strength. I had protected myself. I had saved my grandson. One night, as the stars filled the sky, I remembered that Mother's Day card Ryan had given me as a child. "I love you more than all the stars," I whispered into the darkness. "I still love you, Ryan, but love can't fix everything. Only you can do that now, and maybe someday he would." For now, though I had peace, the house was still mine. My future was still mine. My life was still mine, and that was enough. Because after everything I had been through, I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't winning against others. It's surviving. It's standing tall when the storm has tried to tear you down. It's choosing to live on your own terms, with dignity intact. And that's exactly what I had done. I survived. I protected what was mine. I told the truth, and I refused to be silent.